I want to ask about autism. Do you find that most parents do they get their children evaluated? Is that do they? Because from what I've seen, some people almost are in fear to get them
Okay.
evaluated.
Yes.
Hmm.
I would say over the last maybe 3 years, I've had more parents to actually come in and say, I need my child tested for autism, whether it's the teacher saw some things or, hey, I read about this. But prior to that, I'm from Mississippi, and the kids, parents are now coming in more and they're asking for their children to be tested, whether it's because a teacher saw some signs or the parents themselves had some questions and they've been doing research. I'll say prior to about 3 years ago, I would tell parents, hey, this is something that I'm seeing, and I think it would be a great idea to get tested. And oh my goodness, some of them would be highly upset. And I would have to explain to them, this is not something to be afraid of. Receiving a diagnosis is only to help. It's only to help provide your child or in adults also are being diagnosed, to help clients be able to learn social skills, to be able to learn emotional regulation skills, or just connection and relationship development. I always tell people that people on the spectrum are amazing. Is not something to be afraid of. I'm not, and I don't want to discount some of the services or just the things that people have to adapt to help, their children or their loved ones who are on the spectrum. But it's not something to be afraid of. I enjoy working with the population because these are some of the brightest people in the world. These are some of the most gentle spirits, and I'm happy to know that there are more people that are coming out and saying, my child is on the spectrum or my brother or my sister, because it lets people know that it's okay. It's okay. And if you're noticing signs or symptoms, it's okay to go and get tested, at least for the purpose of figuring out what services can your loved one receive that would make things better. So I'm happy to know that people like you are sharing, your story about your family, and I love seeing people make posts. I always tell people social media, it can be a downfall sometimes, but it's also a tool for people to know, hey, you're not alone. You're not alone. And I experienced this, or if I don't, I know someone who does experience it. So I think spreading awareness is helping more and more people. They're accepting of it. They can come in and say, hey, I think this is going on. What can we do to get my child tested? I need to figure out, what do I need to do as a parent? I need to know, what does the school need to do? So I'm really loving the fact that people are more aware. Because to be honest, before I became a therapist, I didn't know a whole lot about autism. It was actually my supervisor who came to me when I worked in Mississippi and said, hey, I know you love kids, are you interested in learning more about autism? And I said, sure. And I went off to a training in Missouri, learned a lot of information, and it's still something that I'm passionate about as far as just making sure that I'm doing research and that I'm figuring out the best tools and tips to help, because again, there aren't a lot of providers that are educated or that are dedicated to working with the population. So I I'm glad that my supervisor came to me and asked me to learn more, because it definitely is one of my highlights of my career.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I'm learning as I go as well. I'm reading a book on autism now, and I'm even working on a script. I think I'm gonna take the TV show route, writing something, and
But I
we'll talk
can't wait
about
to see
that.
it.
Yeah, we'll talk
Yeah,
about
I
that
can't wait
later.
to see
Yeah,
it.
it's going to be really good. How do you know? when your clients are healing? Like, how do you know when the wheel starts to turn? Like, is there any kind of way that you know things are starting to work out? Like, can you help us with that?
I love that question because that's my favorite part of being a
Mm-hmm.
therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Just being able to witness a client's growth in their self-healing. And I say self-healing because they're doing the work. I'm, of course, facilitating, but it's their journey. Just seeing them grow and evolve through so many of the issues that they may have experienced. And I think the number one thing for me in knowing that, okay, you're on the right path is watching them gain insight, watching them gain, self-awareness and just being empowered. I love when clients come in and they're like, oh, I know what you're about to say. And they'll say, they'll tell me, I had this moment yesterday. I was driving and, I came to this realization or I had this revelation. And when I start seeing that they're excited about what they're learning and they're excited to actually use the tools that they're learning in therapy, and they can come back and tell me, yesterday I was able to be assertive, or, I was able to speak to someone that I haven't spoken to in a long time, and I was able to tell them how I feel. So just seeing them actually practice what we're talking about in therapy, outside of therapy, to me, that's the best feeling in the world. And that lets me know that they're actually getting it and they're using the tools and they're becoming healthier people because of it. I talk to my clients all day
Mm-hmm.
about negative self-talk because the thing is, our negative self-talk usually comes from some type of irrational place. And it usually comes from some type of self-limiting belief that started years and years ago. And we don't realize that it's self-limiting because it lives in our head. So we think it's true. We think we have all the evidence saying that this particular belief is true when it's really not. So I think that negative self-talk, that is at the core of most people's anxiety.